Okay, good evening, Vietnam, and welcome to LZ Bunker. This is Veterans Live Show. I'm your host, Ronnie Embers. I serve with B Company, 1st to the 502nd Infantry, 101st Airborne Division in Vietnam from December 1967 to December 1968. Love the veterans and everything we do with them. God bless them and keep them in your prayers. Tonight, we have a very special guest from Springfield, Ohio, Warrant Officer Phil Marshall, Dustoff Pilot. He was here once before about a month ago, but he has so many wonderful, intriguing adventures. He's already published 2 books, and I'll bring them up later for you. In the meantime, we'll be right back and bring Phil in a moment. But first, we're going to go to our Vietnam timeline. Okay, December 2nd, 1963, the military junta, which took control of the South Vietnamese government following the November coup that resulted in the death of President Nguyen Dinh. A temporary halt was put into place for a strategic hamlet program. This program, initiated in March of 1962 by Diem to get the peasants residing in areas threatened by guerrillas' attack into centralized locations were to be turned into defensive fortification hamlets. Okay, number 1 song in 1963 on December 2nd was The Singing Nun by Dominique. Remember that one? Okay, that was... All right, December 2nd, 1965. For you Navy guys, the USS Enterprise, CZ Van 65, and the USS Bainbridge, DLGN-2J, became the first nuclear-powered task unit in combat operations, which launched airstrikes near Bien Hoa. And the number 1 song, December 2nd, 1965, was Turn, Turn, Turn by the Byrds. Okay, next we're going to roll into our Vietnam Veterans Photo Club photo segment. And don't forget to send your photos into the Vietnam Veterans Photo Club on Facebook or to the show, which you could do at any time. Okay, first show. Okay, first photo. Marie Kennemer sent this in from Warrant Officer James Dale Kennemer, helicopter pilot, 6971. He was highly decorated Vietnam veteran with Bronze Star, Air Medals, with Valor. He was assigned in many units, including the 101st Airborne Division. Also the 92nd Assault Team, and his last station was with the 173rd AHC. His last station after his crash in Quang Tri Province, South Vietnam. That was up by the DMZ. Thank God he was okay. Next picture. This is from Ray Ringinger. That's a tough one. 1969 in Dang Tom. This was the result of the monsoons. Absolutely right, man. The monsoons are crazy. Wow. Dang Tam, nice place. Okay, next photo. Mark Crisp. There you go. When you're hot, you're hot. The steamy climate was one thing. Stand next to the Zippos there and feel spontaneous combustion coming on. Zippos, I remember that. My goodness, we used to have Zippo lighters too for our cigarettes. And everybody had some inscription on it somehow. Okay, next picture. Thank you, Mark. Jack Wells. This was A Company, 1st Battalion, 7th Marine Regiment. Marines that joined in the trying to spot NVA patrols. Nice guys. Look at these guys with their boonie caps. All right. Everybody smiling, looking happy. Got that RTO too on the left. He had a good job. Okay, next picture. Jack Wells again. The Arvin Sky Raider aircraft dropping 250-pound bombs in support of the 21st Arvin Rangers on Operation Taylor Common, December 1968. That's a big bomb, 250 pounds. Next picture.
I think that's it. That's it.
Okay, that's the end of the photo section. Thank you very much. We're going to bring our guest Phil into the bunker now. Hello, Phil. How you doing?
Hey, good to see you again.
Welcome aboard.
Thank
And
you,
welcome
sir.
home. And welcome
Yeah,
home.
you as well.
Okay.
You as well.
So, what do you got for us tonight?
Oh, well, hey, I have to correct you, Ronnie. I have 15 books. I'm just now finishing up the 15th one.
Oh, I only have 2 of them. Sorry.
Yeah, hey, I'll fix you up. It's Christmas. I can send you another one.
That's a great correction. In fact, exactly.
But,
Books, please.
Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. No, I just I started documenting some of the missions in my unit and gave copies of the book to friends that enjoyed hearing the stories. And next thing I know, they're begging for more stories, more books, and that was 8 years ago. And so I guess I'm pumping out one book every 6 months. But guys, how many thousands of stories, helicopter rescue stories, did we have in Vietnam? I mean,
yeah, you're right.
Hundreds every day, every hour.
That's crazy. Yeah, to think about.
Yeah,
they have that recorded somewhere, right?
Well, the Vietnam Helicopter Pilots Association, we have a bi-monthly magazine, and every month there's a couple of missions, and that's been a source for me. But Facebook, whenever I see a Vietnam veteran on Facebook, I ask him, do you have a memorable helicopter rescue mission that you'd like to share with me? And that's become a pretty good source. A lot of the aviation units have their own websites, and a lot of guys post their war stories on there. So yeah, there's thousands of helicopter rescue missions out there. That's the good news. The bad news is that as we pass on, a lot of those stories are lost.
Yep. Yeah. And plus, there were so many different types of rescue missions and dust off.
Oh yeah. I mean, the LERPs, the SOG guys. You step on a landmine or something. We're as dust off. We're there. We've got our onboard medic, and of course we were unarmed. First Cav, which is one of the missions we'll talk about tonight, put M60s in their Hueys. But of course, the Geneva Convention said that we couldn't carry offensive weapons. But most door gunners will tell you it was there mostly to keep the enemy's head down. They may or may not have a target. They're just shooting to keep their heads down. But First Cav called their door guns preventive medicine.
Let me have one question. Didn't our medics in the field carry a 45?
Ours did, yeah. Of course, we weren't in the field. We had either 5-shot Smith & Wesson 38s, or a few of the guys had 45s, but mostly we just had a 5-shot Smith & Wesson.
That was okay, but the other weapons were outlawed?
Well, no, we were allowed to have weapons for patient protection. We just couldn't have offensive weapons. We couldn't have rockets and miniguns and things like that.
Okay.
But I mean, like our crew chief and medic, they had M79 grenade launchers, and there's another one I'm going to tell you about here in a little bit. The guy was the medic was firing M79 rounds like the crew chief couldn't believe. He said, "I've never seen a guy fire so many rounds so quick out of an M79."
Yeah, I used to carry one of those. I hated it, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, well, it can be effective for sure.
Yeah, for its own reason, but you get in a firefight close in, you're out of luck, man. Hopefully your 45 is working, but
that's what the shotgun rounds are for.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but we had some guys that really poke them right in there, into the bunker.
Oh yeah.
So it was well. So go ahead.
I'll just tell you about it now while we're on it.
Go ahead.
We just put out a new book. It's called Dances with Bullets.
There you go.
And the medic was Delmar Pickett. He went by Del. Have you ever seen the Morton Dean video, American Medevac?
No.
He actually went on a dust-off mission. Right. And it just so happened that Del Pickett was the medic on that mission. And Morton Dean, about 40 years later, went back and found the 3 wounded that were picked up and the crew, and did an outstanding video on it, 50-minute TV special. But anyway, Del, write this down. You might want to use it later. He had 5. No, I'm just teasing. He had 5 Purple Hearts. He had 6, but he didn't claim the first one. He had 45 Air Medals. He had 2 Distinguished Flying Crosses, 2 Vietnamese Crosses of Gallantry, and he passed away here a couple years ago. And through a friend of a friend, Dell asked his wife to have his diary published after he passed. Why he didn't do it while he was still living, I don't know. But 3 or 4 of us went together. We put the book out. It will just now be available in about a week on Amazon, again, called Dances with Bullets. And just an incredible, he was there for 2 years. He extended twice, the 6-month extension twice. Wow. And he tried to extend the 3rd time, and they said, no, you're going home. So that's how dedicated this guy was. And
well, here's a serious thing about that. You say, how many oak leaf clusters could you fit on a medal?
Well, you get the number. Yeah. Well, you see some of the pilots and the crew, they've got a number on their air medal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but yeah, if you're a grunt for every 25 air combat missions, you got one, and so you get a couple of oak leaves on it. Sure, that was great. You guys earned it. But for air crew, every 25 combat missions, 25 hours of combat missions was an air medal. And of course, one of Pickett's medals, air medals, was with a V device for Valor. Right. But 45 air medals, and 5 should have been 6 Purple Hearts. The guy just loved what he was doing.
Put a little footnote on about combat assaults. I got a letter from the 101st Airborne Division, Air Assault. They're going to honor all the guys in Vietnam who did combat assaults, because we were doing combat assaults before there was air assault school.
Yeah.
So they finally, I don't know who got the idea, but they finally came around that if you qualified, and like you said, you had 25,
25 combat assaults.
Or you came under fire, or you had the training, or there's certain things. But I think that's quite a honorable thing that they did, because, like I say, we were doing combat assaults, jumping out of UEs into elephant grass, 5, 8, 10 feet above the ground, and.
Well, you wanted out of that puppy. You didn't want to stick around that helicopter. That's a big target sitting there.
But here we are, 50 years later, getting an upgrade, like to wear the air assault badge. That's pretty decent. So thank you for the 1st Airborne Division. Okay, so go ahead. Next, let's start a story.
All right. Out of my first book, DMZ Dustoff Vietnam, which was the 237th Medical Detachment, we were the northernmost Dustoff unit in Vietnam, and which put us not that far from the border with Laos. Our guys get a call to pick up 2 Air Force A4 pilots that had to punch out over Laos. Right. And bad weather, low cloud layer and everything, so they head out to Laos, and they're hovering around looking for these 2 Air Force guys. They know about where they're at. And the Air Force helicopters and fast movers, they're above the cloud layer. They're not going down underneath and looking. And our guys couldn't find them. They had to go back and refuel. They go back out again, and they find them. They picked them up and took them back to base. And boy, they were just so thankful for these Army guys in this Dustoff Huey. Right. Our guys were doing 120 knots, which is 135 miles an hour. 50 feet above the ground to get out of there. Right. And the Air Force guys apparently were more scared of that than they were anything else. And can't this thing go any faster? Well, here's the long and the short of it. The guys are rescued. They're fine. They get them back to the Air Force, and the Air Force is going to throw the Dustoff crew a party down at Da Nang for rescuing their guys. And the Army says, "Oh no, we're going to give you an Article 15 for going into Laos." Yeah. So cooler heads prevailed, and they didn't get their Article 15. But like the medic told me, he says there was no billboard that said "Welcome to Laos." We just went where our guys were down, and yeah. So the Air Force threw them this big party. Just the crew of 4 went down to Da Nang. The pilot was telling me that this Air Force nurse comes out in a wheelbarrow with these big brass colored Christmas ornaments and hangs them on their zippers, because the Army guys had brass Christmas ornaments, shall we say. And there was adult beverages, and I guess our guys had to go back that night. So with a couple of adult beverages in them, they made it back to Quang Tri. but instead of kind of a hard landing, but you know.
Okay.
But that was you know, a genuine rescue. But the Air Force throws them a party, and the Army wants to court-martial them. How crazy is that?
I hear you. I got one comment to make on that one about the 150 or 135 knots or whatever. I remember being in the village or on the ground or somewhere in the bush. You hear the Hueys coming, treetop, more about treetop level, and like you hear them, and all of a sudden they're gone. They don't give out speeding tickets for you guys.
Nope. Nope.
It was crazy.
No, we found out how fast they could go. Excuse me. But see, what you're telling me, just something you guys probably didn't understand. I didn't understand it for a while. But a helicopter, especially a Huey with those two big rotor blades, puts out what we call a cone of sound. And so the higher up you are, the bigger that base of the cone is. So the lower to the ground, that's a real small cone. So if I'm doing 135 miles an hour at treetop level, you don't hear me coming until I'm right on top of you.
Right.
So, but if I do that at, say, a couple thousand feet, well, you're going to hear me miles away.
Right.
So that was how we were able to sneak in, sneak out, so to speak, into the LZs. We come in hot and low and fast, and drop in, get our guys, and get out. And the enemy hopefully didn't have a whole lot of time to know we were there.
That's why you don't get the woo 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 from down low.
Yeah, you get it, but you just get it for a couple seconds.
If you did, you hear more mechanical parts. I thought, in a way, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, even if we flew right over the enemy, unless they got the weapon in their hand pointing up at the sky, they're not going to have a shot at us.
Right. Good.
But you're still taking a risk because you've got open area that you got to fly over too. They can see you coming even if they can't hear you.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But then that leads me to the next story I was going to go over with you is a hoist mission. That was absolutely the most dangerous, the highest pucker factor thing that we did was a hoist mission. Do I need to explain to your audience what a high pucker factor is?
I don't know. I think they know what puckers mean. What puckers
okay.
mean.
All right. Well, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But the noise that we made, just sitting there in the treetops, hauling our wounded up, the enemy would just shoot at the noise, even if they couldn't see us. They just shoot at the noise. And sometimes they get lucky, and we had an awful lot of losses on those hoist missions, loss of air crew, helicopters, the guys were hoisting up and so on. But a good friend of mine who is the current president of the Vietnam Helicopter Pilots Association, a guy by the name of Art Jacobs, was a warrant officer in his first tour, and he was a gun Cobra pilot in his second tour. He flew Dustoff during TET, and he flew Cobras during Lam Son 719. What kind of luck is that?
There you go.
But he was on a hoist mission on what we call a hot hoist. It was an insecure area, but he had seriously wounded people. They started taking fire, and their door gunner takes a round in the head. And the aircraft loses hydraulics, so they have to abort the mission. They go back to base. They're able to limp back to base. He gets another helicopter, gets another door gunner, and he goes back out. They start taking fire again. They're dropping the hoist, start taking fire again. This time the co-pilot is hit, and again they lose hydraulics, and they have to abort the mission again. So he goes back, makes an emergency landing again. Looking for another helicopter, and the commanding officer said, "No, you're not going out. We already lost 2 aircraft. We got 2 wounded, 1 serious. You're not going back out." And Art says about that time, the company commander of the unit on the ground comes up, and he says, "Guys, you got to go get my men. They're dying out there. You got to go get them." So Art looks at the company commander, and he says, "Sir," he says, "let me get a volunteer crew and go back out and try it again." So he let him do it. So this time Art goes out the 3rd time. Knows where the LZ is. They drop the hoist. They start taking fire again. This time, Art is wounded. So 3 aircraft, they crashed that time. So 3 aircraft, 3 wounded guys, 1 seriously. But that was what we did to try to get our wounded out. That was our job.
I can remember being hoisted on. We had a friendly fire incident with our company and in triple canopy.
Yeah.
And the guys were trying to. They were felling trees with their own body weight. They'd get up on top of these trees, maybe that fat around, trying to just
they're trying to break them off.
Yeah, and then they drop some in, and
those hoist missions were very dangerous.
Yeah, I got one. I got hoisted at one time with that.
Oh, all right. Well, then you had the 50-cent ride.
Yeah, the other one was in a rice paddy. That was easy. The second one. Yeah.
You probably didn't know. You probably didn't know, but on our cyclic stick, we had a red button that if we pushed it, it would cut the hoist cable if we had to.
Really?
Yeah, but that was a last resort. That was an absolute.
I was halfway up, and like
three-quarters of the way up. 3/4 of the way up. If you got hung up in the trees, it was either you and the helicopter with 4 people or more on it.
Right, I got you.
Yeah, but I never had to use it. Here's the funny thing about hoist missions. Our unit instructor pilot spent 12 months there and never once pulled a hot hoist mission. Never once in 12 months. The first day that I flew as an aircraft commander, I had a hot hoist mission. So you just never knew. But I tell you what, that is the scariest time. You're not scared when you're doing it. You're doing your job. You're doing what you were trained to do. But on the way out of there, you're thinking, it's one of those moments, we got away with it again.
Then you got to go dry your pants.
Yeah. Change your underwear. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, next.
Okay. All right, next one. This one, this is, by the way, these the name of the books are Helicopter Rescues Vietnam.
Yeah, I got this. Here's the one I got here.
Oh yeah, there's one you got. Okay, now that one is that's the second book that I did, and that's all medevac and Dustoff missions. Yeah, medevac was the first cav call sign.
The other one you sent me is in my office.
Yeah, and that one is DMZ Dustoff Vietnam, which was my unit.
There you go.
But if anybody's interested, if you just go to Amazon and type in Phil Marshall Vietnam, all the books will come up.
Great.
Okay, but this one, we've been trying to get the combat medics badge for our air medics. Right, you guys on the ground, absolutely, you deserved it. But our guys we didn't have any logs we could hide behind, things like that.
Yeah.
And our air medics were just as vulnerable as anybody else, perhaps more vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Well, the Army is now giving the combat medics badge to air medics, but it was only retroactive back to 2001. So our guys are the ones that pioneered the concept.
Right.
But yet they won't get somebody in the Pentagon has got the ass for Vietnam veterans, and every Vietnam air medic except every other medic except for Vietnam air medics gets a combat medics badge, but our guys don't. So we've been trying.
Phil, right now I'm gonna go on all the pages we have, all the websites we have, and we're gonna have everybody get in touch with their congressman. Find out if you don't know now, find out who's behind it, whatever it is, and we're gonna pound them.
I'll let you know. We've been working on it
and everything. Yeah.
All right. We've been working on it for years.
You're absolutely right. Our medics had a weapon in their hand. They had a helmet on their head. They had flak jackets, maybe. I don't know if you wore them, but the fact is, you're right. Vulnerability. The guy was just out there doing nothing. Yeah. And then a lot of times they had to drop medics down too. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to read this. This was a statement before Congress by a wounded soldier. And forgive me for reading it, but and I have a little bit of trouble reading it, not because I can't see, just because of what it is. But this was a soldier that was wounded and was saved by a medevac helicopter by Dustoff. So bear with me here while I read it to you.
No problem.
This is the grunt talking. He says, "For the rest of my life, I will never forget the whopping sound of the Huey's blades and the sight of that spotlight clearing the tree line. Obviously, it was at night. As the helicopter got closer, I could see sparks flying everywhere as countless small arms rounds hit the helicopter. I remember thinking, there is no way any of those guys will make it. I honestly thought the helicopter would be shot down and we would all die. But somehow, through all the gunfire, they got in. I remember seeing those beautiful angels pick me up and take me aboard. I remember the pinging of bullets ripping through the skin of the Huey and hearing the crew excitedly yet calmly talking to one another, and I saw this face above me. The face had blood all over it, and it was saying to me, 'Buddy, stay with me. Hey, buddy, you're going to be all right,' over and over again. I would drift in and out of consciousness, and all I can recall is this bloody face telling me I was going to make it. When I came to, a nurse asked me if I felt like company. Something happened that will live with me for the rest of my life. The Dustoff crew was in the hospital with me. The guys that saved my life, the young boys that rescued me, themselves had been wounded. The blood on the air medic's face was not mine, it was his. A bullet had gone through his cheek, but rather than attend to his own wounds, he kept me alive.
Yep.
How's that? Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
A lot of stories like that.
Yeah. So that was, just incredible. You were talking about the medics having weapons, which of course ours did too. We all had our personal weapons, and we had M16s or the M79s, whatever. One of our guys had a Thompson machine gun. But April Fool's Day of 1970, one of my best friends in Vietnam, I was already home by that time. They picked up some LRRPs in the DMZ. And it was one of those missions where they're whispering in the radio, and then they're on the run, and then they're whispering again. They landed and got the LRRPs on. One of them was wounded. Got the LRRPs on board. Unfortunately, one of the guys took a bullet in the head from behind as he was getting on the helicopter. But the enemy was so close that the medic had his weapon drawn, and with one hand, he's helping guys on the aircraft, and the other hand, he's shooting at the enemy to try to keep their heads down. The aircraft, they took off under fire. Everything, they lost everything. Hydraulics, they lost engine oil pressure, transmission was running hot. The co-pilot told me he counted over 100 bullet holes. My buddy said that seems kind of high, but he guaranteed that it was high double digits. On the way back to Quang Tri, the only radio that was working was the emergency radio that the co-pilot had, and the handheld emergency locator. So he calls Quang Tri Tower and says, "I've got wounded. I'm in big trouble. I have hydraulics. Have the crash truck standing by. Get the ambulance out to the runway. We've got to make a running landing." And of course, he's making this call on the guard frequency, and that means any aircraft in the area can hear this.
Right.
And so my buddy says, next thing I know, he says, we got a CH-53 Air Force helicopter on our wing. And Dustoff, we got you covered. We're right with you. And he said, next thing I know, he said, I got Cobras on the other side of me. And he said it looked like a flying circus. He said we had so many aircraft following us in, but he said they were limping. All the instruments were out, or many of the instruments were out. The warning lights were going off. They made a touchdown. They made a landing. Oh, before they get on short final, some full-bird colonel or general comes out. Boys, now just remember your training in flight school. Just remember your training, And the co-pilot said, "Shut up, Dad." He's saying it to himself, not on the radio. And he said, "Let us land the damn thing." And so they get on the ground. They slide in down the runway and get the wounded in the ambulance, and the aircraft never flew again. But again, like I say, by them transmitting on guard, everybody in the neighborhood heard them, and as soon as they see this gaggle of aircraft headed for Quang Tri, they all joined in. So we looked out for each other. But here's a really neat thing about it. This was in 2012 when that first book was published. One of our crew chiefs has a jacket that says 237 Dustoff, DMZ Dustoff on the back. It's embroidered. And he was at a parade in Royal Oak, Michigan, Memorial Day, July 4th, whatever. And this guy comes up to him and he says, "You fly with the 237th DMZ Dustoff?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I was a crew chief." "Oh, you guys used to pick us up all the time, da 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 da." And the crew chief says, "Well, we've got a book out now, our missions. You ought to pick one up and see if there's anything you recognize." Well, as it turns out, he was one of those guys, one of those LRRPs that was picked up on that aircraft.
Really?
And not only could now we identify him, but he also gave us the name of the guy that was killed getting on the aircraft. So I added another 4 pages to that story to honor the guy that was KIA, but also, how cool is that in the middle of Royal Oak, Michigan, at a parade, they just happened to meet, and now we have more of the story.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there have been so many coincidences like that. One of the unintended consequences, so to speak. One more of those unintended consequences. I was just finishing up a book one day, and there was a story in there that a guy was a Dustoff pilot, and they had to go into a landing zone to pick up their commanding officer who had been wounded, again, in the head. And the landing zone was under fire. And they couldn't land close enough to the wounded commanding officer, so they had to sit there for a short time till they could get the guy over to him. And again, bullets flying everywhere. And he just happened to read years later in a Reader's Digest article about a guy by the name of Sam Bird, who was a very well-respected commanding officer of this ground troop. And they're talking about the day Sam Bird was wounded in the head and picked up by a Dustoff helicopter. Well, the pilot, like I say, years later, reads a story and looks at the dates, and by golly, that was his mission. So I put that mission in the book and was just getting ready to go to press with it. And it was a Saturday morning, and my wife's doing house cleaning, and she hands me these 2 typewritten pages, and she said, "Here, do you need this?" And I looked at it, and the title was The Bravest Thing I've Ever Seen. And it was a story that a guy had given me when we were at an American Huey 369 event in Michigan, and I had forgotten all about it. I laid it down and forgot about it. So I started reading it, and I'll be a son of a gun. He was the artillery advisor on that mission that Sam Bird was rescued, and the bravest thing he ever saw was that pilot sitting there waiting to get the wounded on board while bullets were flying all over the place.
Yeah,
and so, they didn't know each other. And so I called the pilot and I said, "Hey," I said, "there's a guy you might want to beat." And I read him the story and gave him "Oh yeah," he said, "Yeah," he said, I'd like to meet him." So that was just another thing. Just unbelievable and unintended consequence.
Yeah, the circumstances are right like crazy. In fact, for a short one for me, on my way back from I believe it was the second time out of the 85th evac, I believe it was in the Quignon, and I took the circuitous route back to Braintree to Dong Ha, and I stopped at Phuket.
Excuse me while I get a drink.
Yeah, no problem. I stopped at Phuket Air Base, and I heard that one of my buddies same day I joined the Army, him and another friend of ours from high school, we grew up from the 3rd grade together. They both joined the Air Force. I joined the Army the same day. And he said he was at Phuket. I actually tracked him down somehow. Yeah. Found him in the mess hall at the 37th Fighter Squadron or whatever this place. I don't know if that's the right number. And I found this guy that George Gibson, his name was. We used to call him Hoot. And amazing things happen in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. Then I'm coming out of a massage parlor in Vung Tau.
I wouldn't know about those.
Some guy.
They had those there?
This guy, Herb Udis from high school, he goes, "Are you Ronnie Empress?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, it was like another, how do you do this? Meet people from high school in the country of Vietnam with his 2 million or 500,000 troops and airmen and Marines and everything. It was amazing. Circumstances that arrived. So other than that, you have some way to tell your stuff, Phil. You're amazing speaker.
Hey,
no problem.
Are you ready for another one?
Yep.
All right.
Wrap it up.
Tell me when I'm going too long here.
Okay. Go for it.
All right. This is the Ghost Riders. That was the aviation company, and they're in the Ashaw Valley. And I'm trying to get the unit number. 158 Wow, can't even talk. 158 Aviation Company. They were stationed same place I was. But they're the southern tip of the Ashaw Valley. They're trying to insert troops into a single ship LZ. And before long, 3 aircraft, 3 Hueys, get shot down in the LZ, but they had enough to crash off to the side so they didn't block the LZ.
Right.
So here comes another Huey in. They get shot up, lose their hydraulics, and it's all they can do to get to the edge of the landing zone, which is on the side of a mountain. Well, the back of the aircraft is hanging over the side of the mountain. They have no hydraulics. It's like driving your car with no power steering and no power brakes.
Right.
And they can't shut the aircraft down because if they do, it's going to fall off the side of the mountain.
Right.
So the guys from the other aircraft that were crashed get on the skids, on the front skids of the helicopter. And I've got a picture in the book of 6 guys on the skids of the front of the helicopter so they can shut the aircraft down and prop up the tail boom so the aircraft doesn't fall off the side of the mountain. So here's the good part. The crew chief right away does some checking, and he finds the reason why they lost the hydraulics because they took a round in the hydraulic reservoir and all the hydraulic fluid leaked out. So he goes to one of the wrecked Hueys, takes the hydraulic reservoir out of one of those, replaces it, which is not difficult. There's only a few bolts to hold it on, replaces the reservoir, adds more hydraulic fluid because these guys always carried hydraulic fluid with them, our crew chiefs, and the aircraft is now flyable. So they put one of the wounded pilots in one seat, any of the other wounded crew members in the back, and they're ready to come out. So they call the CNC ship that's orbiting overhead, and they go, "Hey, this is whatever, Ghost Rider 6-7. We got the aircraft fixed. We replaced the hydraulic reservoir. We're coming out." And the colonel, major, whatever in CNC says, "Well, wait, you can't fly that yet. It hasn't been TI'd, I mean technical inspected." Said, "You can't fly that. You haven't been TI'd yet." Yeah. And so the pilot, not his first mission, "You're breaking up. We're coming out." Yeah, but absolute true story. They were getting shot down left and right, but they kept the LZ open, and yeah, absolute true story. Absolute true story. It's just crazy.
You got some backdrop up there behind you with the helicopter blade.
Oh yeah, you said yeah, but that's not
the helicopter.
That's a Blackhawk.
The fan.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna put a tail rotor on it one of these days. Yeah.
You had the thing going. All right, we're gonna have a few questions, I guess, from the audience, Phil.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let's see what pops up here. There you go. We're all Dustoff Hueys hoist capable.
Yes and no. We only had 2 hoists, and every day the first up ship. Now this is just our unit, but every day the first up ship had the hoist in there, and then we had a backup we had a 3-day standby at Quang Tri. We were at Camp Evans for a while. Medevac, first cab Medevac had the hoist, and we had the hoist, but we were so far up the supply chain, I had to get my uniforms, my Nomex, on the black market. I couldn't get them through regular supply. But yeah, to answer your question, all the Dustoff Hueys were hoist capable, but every day the first up aircraft installed the hoist, and then our standby ship at Quang Tri had one also.
Okay, thank you. Next. The Vietnam War veterans, just thank you so much for reminding.
Yeah, it's been my honor and privilege to recognize these guys and these stories. Again, it was our job. That was what we were trained to do, and we loved the flying, and we learned what that Huey could do. I guarantee it. In flight school, we learned to work the controls. In Vietnam, we learned to fly the aircraft. That's
why they call it the helicopter war.
Yeah, absolutely. But we got to be very, very highly skilled with those things. And I talk about in one of the books that it got to the point where, I had my hands and my feet on the controls, but I just thought, I want to go over there. This is where I want to land. And that's what the helicopter did. Yeah. I mean, I was in control, but you were one with the aircraft. Right. And it just, you felt that comfortable with it. And that only comes with time and experience. I mean, some days we might fly 8 or 9 hours. The next day we might only fly an hour. As Dustoff, we would do a lot of takeoffs and landings, and that's where you get the skill as the pilot. Yeah. To answer your question there, thank you. You're very, very welcome. It's been my honor and privilege to document these stories. It's you just gotta read them and shake your head in disbelief sometimes, the stuff that we got away with. And unfortunately, some of the times we didn't get away with it. There's one mission I've been able to document that's, I don't want to say it's very famous, but a lot of helicopter Vietnam guys know about it. a slick was assigned to go out and pick up some lerps that were under serious fire. They were being chased, and the slick was real hesitant to go down. The bad guys are all around. And the guys on the ground said, "You don't have any." I think I told you this one before. You don't have any manly body parts if you don't come down and get us. And they did. They went down and got him, picked him up, and as they're leaving the LZ, they took a rocket, and the aircraft blew up in air, in midair, and there was nothing left. So, like I say, sometimes the stories aren't good, but at least I can recognize those guys by name and honor them. And like I say, it's been my honor to put these things together.
All right, this one guy did. Lan Tam just said you have a way of telling the stories and keeping everybody focused and engaged. Lisa Warren Pettigrew. I teach all three of my children about the Vietnam War and our Vietnam veterans. They will pass it down to their children and hopefully the generations after. Your sacrifice will never be forgotten. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I understand that libraries are taking books about Vietnam off the shelves. History books, our kids' history books. Might give Vietnam War a couple of paragraphs. So I kind of my alternate issue is generations not learning about what we did. We were there for a noble cause. We were there to help South Vietnam remain a democratic republic like we are. We weren't there because we love war. We were there to help them maintain their democracy. And unfortunately, we won the battles, but we didn't lose the war. We were just told to go home. But thank you very much, Lisa.
Okay, Kilo 19, it says it seems asinine that you weren't given combat badges from the start.
Yeah, we just wanted them. We want them for the medics. We're not asking for them for ourselves. We're not asking anything for ourselves. Right. I agree. Our medics, just amazing. Another story I can pass on to you. Our crew was listening on all of our radio calls. They knew what was going on. And so this is a Dustoff crew. They're going in to pick up a WIA. And the guy on the ground, the radio operator on the ground says the aircraft is on short final. They're about ready to land. And the RTO on the ground says, "Hey, Dustoff, go around. Our WIA is a KIA." Well, like I say, the medic is listening to this, and the medic tells the pilot, "Get me in there, sir." So they did, and get the KIA on board, and the medic's able to bring him around. So our guys just, it was just amazing what they were doing.
To that. Okay, from Alan Pope, in 1969, he ran into two guys just a couple of days apart that I went to high school with and played baseball from Little League. We were all at Eagle Beach for different reasons, all combat vets with the 101st Airborne. There you go.
Your guys.
There you go. What a coincidence, right? That's terrific.
Yeah.
Actually, I met a guy in Saigon who worked in Yonkers where I grew up, and he was in the supply business of sanitary supplies, cleaning supplies, stuff like that. I went in the cleaning business in '73. I met him 6 years after because I went to his office and stuff, or wherever he was. He was a salesman for the Army, for the Army, to sell them their cleaning goods. And I met him 6 years later back home. That's crazy.
Yeah. How many times did ships cross in the night and you didn't know?
Amen.
Yeah. Okay. Got time for one more? Oh, okay. Wait a minute. Oh, okay. What's the hoist? Okay. Same guy. The hoist was 250 feet of braided cable that we could run down with an electric winch. And at the bottom was what we called a jungle penetrator. Usually it was a jungle penetrator because you're picking up guys in the jungle. And when the penetrator would touch the ground, that would release the static electricity that built up. You didn't want to touch it till it hit the ground. But then there would be 3 leaves or petals that would fold out. You could haul up to 3 people, but we'd only do 1 or 2 usually. And the problem with the hoist, what makes it so dangerous is that cable doesn't run very fast. And again, it goes up to 250 feet. So you're just sitting there in the treetops, literally sitting in a tree, holding that aircraft steady while the medic and the crew chief are running that hoist up and down one, two, three, four, five times, however many times it takes. You can be sitting in the treetops for 20, 30 minutes easy with that loud helicopter. How do these guys get wounded? Well, there's bad guys in the area. So again, you're just the proverbial sitting duck sitting there while you're hoisting, running the wounded up and down the cable. So it taxed us very much. It was one of the most things. It was one of the things that required the most skill of us, I guess, with that hoist mission. But it was very dangerous for us.
Okay, one more. This will be the last one. Dave, thank you so much for remembering us. I made it home, so thankful. Didn't get a welcome home, but I am happy. Still going. Someone was looking out for me. They still are. Love my freedom. He knows what freedom costs us.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more, David. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. And here's one of Phil's books. Remember, go to Amazon and search out Phil Marshall, Vietnam.
Yep.
And you can pick up one of his 375,000 books.
15 books. 15, Ronnie.
Yeah. Good for you.
Oh,
Phil.
wait. 16 plus dances with bullets.
Great to see you again, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah, same here. Thank you very much, sir.
You got it. All right, and thank you out there in Vietnam veterans world. Yeah, what a time. Phil, so good. And boy, he probably brings a lot of memories back for a lot of people because most people are in the field, especially, were involved with that UE helicopter. So we want to thank you again for watching. Remember, you can sign up to be on the show if you want. Just go to Vietnam Veterans Photo Club on Facebook. You can send your pictures in to us the same way. And you can just have the host, any questions for the host or the guest the night that the show is on. So see you next time. God bless you all and welcome home.